In 2005, George A. Romero rose from the cinematic grave he helped create. After 2 decades away from the genre he defined, he returned with Land of the Dead, a film drenched in firelight, class warfare, and the eerie intelligence of the undead. But beneath the gunfire and gore lies a web of bizarre production secrets, hidden callbacks, and unsettling decisions that nearly reshaped the zombie genre forever. From a special effects legend killing his own zombie self, to Simon Pegg's secret cameo, to a major studio's attempt to steal Romero's franchise, these are 20 weird and disturbing facts about Land of the Dead you've probably never heard. Fact number 1, the Dead Reckoning vehicle took weeks to build. The armored fortress known as Dead Reckoning wasn't a CGI creation, it was a fully built, battle-ready truck that took weeks of fabrication and testing to complete. Romero wanted the vehicle to feel authentic, like something humanity had welded together from the bones of civilization itself. The production team started with a massive truck chassis and layered it with scavenged steel, gun turrets, and working flame launchers that could actually fire. Its interior was cramped and filthy, as though generations of survivors had lived inside it, sleeping, fighting, and firing from its windows. Every dent and scorch mark told a story. For the crew, Dead Reckoning wasn't just a prop, it was a character. It symbolized the last gasp of human ingenuity in a decaying world, a rolling fortress built from desperation. Fans still compare it to the Monroeville Mall from Dawn of the Dead, a mobile version of civilization's final stronghold.
Fucking face off.
Fact number 2, Fox tried to steal the franchise from Romero. Before Land of the Dead ever rolled camera, Romero fought a battle far scarier than zombies, Hollywood. He originally pitched the film to 20th Century Fox, but the studio wanted to rename it Night of the Living Dead, or Night of the Living Dead, Dead Reckoning. To Romero, that sounded suspicious. After consulting lawyers, he realized Fox's true motive. By using the Night of the Living Dead title, which was in the public domain, they could legally claim ownership of the new film and potentially the entire franchise going forward. In other words, if he'd agreed, Fox would have owned his life's work. Romero immediately walked away, refusing to sign. He later said the experience reaffirmed why he'd always preferred independence over studio control. Within months, Universal picked up the project, giving him creative freedom and the budget he needed. In a genre obsessed with the undead, Romero nearly watched his own legacy get buried alive. Fact number 3, Asia Argento was cast to honor her horror legend father. When Romero cast Asia Argento as the tough survivor named Slack, it wasn't just because she fit the role, it was a deeply personal tribute. Her father, Italian horror icon Dario Argento, had produced Dawn of the Dead in 1978, providing crucial funding and international distribution. By casting Dario's daughter nearly 3 decades later, Romero bridged generations of horror royalty. Asia performed her own stunts, mastered weapons training, and embraced the grit of the apocalypse. Her energy on set mirrored her father's intensity behind the camera. Romero often described Land of the Dead as a family reunion for horror, and Asia's casting reflected that. It was a quiet nod to the friendships and collaborations that built the zombie genre itself. From Suspiria's haunted halls to Romero's ruined cityscapes, the Argento name had come full circle, a family legacy of nightmares that spanned continents and generations. Fact number 4, many concepts were recycled from Day of the Dead. Land of the Dead wasn't just Romero's return, it was his redemption. Back in 1985, his original Day of the Dead script had been 200 pages long, filled with massive outdoor sequences, fortress cities, and zombies learning to use tools. But when his $7 million budget was slashed to half that, he was forced to rewrite the film to take place almost entirely underground. For 20 years, those ideas sat in a drawer. When Land of the Dead was finally greenlit with nearly $20 million to work with, Romero resurrected his lost vision. The electrified fences, the class-divided city of Fiddler's Green, the evolving intelligence of the undead. All of it came from that abandoned Day of the Dead script. In many ways, Land of the Dead isn't just the fourth chapter in Romero's saga, it's the completed version of the third. The film he always meant to make, finally realized on a scale he could only dream of in the 80s. It's fitting that a story about the dead rising again began as an idea that refused to stay buried. Fact number 5. Tom Savini kills his own zombie character from 1978. One of the most haunting Easter eggs in the entire Romero universe comes from special effects master Tom Savini. In Land of the Dead, Savini appears briefly as a machete-wielding zombie, recognizable to fans as the undead version of Blades, the biker he played in Dawn of the Dead, 1978. In that earlier film, Blades died violently inside the Monroeville Mall fountain. 27 years later, Savini resurrected him, now pale, lifeless, and hungering for flesh. The meta-twist? Savini's zombie is later killed by his own hand. Under the makeup applied by his former protege Greg Nicotero, Savini found the experience surreal. It was like confronting his younger self, both artistically and literally. For fans who followed Romero's world since the 70s, the moment was chilling, a perfect metaphor for how every character, every story, and every filmmaker eventually joins the undead legacy they helped create. Fact number 6. Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright appear as photo booth zombies. When Shaun of the Dead hit theaters in 2004, it was more than just a parody. It was a love letter to George A. Romero. The film earned his admiration instantly. So when Romero began filming Land of the Dead, he personally invited Shaun's creators, Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright, to join the undead ranks. The two played chained-up photo booth zombies, part of a grotesque carnival attraction inside Fiddler's Green, where survivors pay to take selfies with captive corpses. It's Romero's dark satire of how quickly people can turn horror into spectacle. Pegg and Wright endured hours of prosthetics and full-body makeup, forced to remain motionless while extras posed beside them. Their cameo is brief but unforgettable, a twisted snapshot of celebrity meeting its creator. Pegg later called it one of the greatest honors of his life, to go from parodying Romero's monsters to becoming one of them. Fact number 7. Romero's voice appears in a children's puppet show. Not all cameos are meant to be seen. Some are meant to be heard. Romero's own voice appears in Land of the Dead, but unless you're listening carefully, you'll miss it. During a quick street scene, a puppet show plays for a group of children featuring a little puppet yelling, "Take that, you smelly zombie!" That voice is Romero himself. It's one of the most subtle Easter eggs in the film, but symbolically powerful. The puppet show, a children's entertainment act teaching kids how to fight zombies, mirrors how society commodifies horror, even in the apocalypse. It's Romero's classic social commentary, wrapped in gallows humor. Romero didn't need to appear on screen. His voice, faint but playful, reminds us that even amid the world's collapse, humanity still finds ways to make light of the dark. Fact number 8. Romero cast his own daughter as a soldier. Behind every apocalypse, there's family. For Romero, Land of the Dead became a personal time capsule. His daughter, Tina Romero, appears briefly as a soldier who shoots a zombie caught on an electrified fence. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but deeply symbolic. Tina had grown up on her father's sets, surrounded by latex blood, fake guts, and camera crews. By 2005, she wasn't just the director's daughter, she was part of his cinematic world. What makes this moment even more touching is what came later. When Romero passed away in 2017, Tina was by his side. Land of the Dead wasn't just another zombie film, it was a reunion, a farewell, and a family portrait built out of monsters and memories. Fact number 9. The zombie band plays Dawn of the Dead music. Fans of Romero's earlier films might have felt a strange sense of déjà vu during one of Land of the Dead's earliest scenes. As the camera pans across a park filled with the undead, a zombie band is playing faint, off-key music, the same tune from Dawn of the Dead, the gonk. Back in 1978, that cheerful mall jingle became iconic, symbolizing consumerism and mindless routine. Now, hearing it played by corpses decades later feels chilling. It's as if the zombies remember it too. Maybe somewhere in the back of their decayed minds, they recall who they used to be. That haunting echo connects Romero's universe across time, proving that his zombies aren't just monsters. They're memories of the world we destroyed. Fact number 10. It's the first film in the series with an MPAA rating. For decades, Romero's Dead films were too raw, too independent, and too unfiltered for the MPAA. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn, and Day were all released unrated, often banned from major theater chains for their graphic content. But in 2005, Universal Pictures wanted Land of the Dead to reach a wider audience, meaning Romero needed to play by Hollywood's rules. Instead of compromising, he outsmarted the system. Romero filmed every gruesome scene exactly as he wanted, then edited two versions, an R-rated cut for theaters and an unrated cut for DVD, both released simultaneously on October 18, 2005. This gave fans a choice: see the official version in cinemas or the unfiltered nightmare at home. It was Romero's most calculated rebellion yet, a filmmaker who refused to be tamed even by the system that financed him. Fact number 11. They digitally painted out blood to get an R rating. To make Land of the Dead acceptable for theatrical release, the team didn't reshoot scenes or tone down violence. They used computers. This was one of the first major horror films to rely heavily on digital blood correction. When gore was too intense, technicians digitally darkened the blood to make it look less vivid, or erased it entirely. Foreground props were composited to obscure the worst shots, then removed again for the unrated cut. One of the most infamous examples involves a zombie ripping out a woman's navel piercing. In the R-rated version, the shot cuts away. In the unrated cut, you see the entire horrifying detail. Romero essentially invented a new kind of censorship loophole: hide it for the censors, reveal it later for the fans. 2 decades later, it's still the standard trick for balancing art and approval. Fact number 12. Greg Nicotero served as director, makeup artist, and actor. Greg Nicotero's fingerprints are all over Land of the Dead, literally. He served triple duty as makeup effects supervisor, second unit director, and actor. In one scene, he plays a zombified cop. In another, a bridgekeeper zombie. When he wasn't performing, he was orchestrating massive crowd sequences, sometimes directing the same zombies he just finished gluing prosthetics onto. Nicotero had started his career under Romero and Tom Savini on Day of the Dead back in 1985. By 2005, he was one of the industry's leading masters of gore, eventually becoming executive producer of The Walking Dead. In a way, Land of the Dead marks the moment the torch was passed, from Romero, the godfather of zombies, to Nicotero, the man who would carry the legacy into a new century of horror. Fact number 13. The film was shot in Canada, but set in Pittsburgh. Every Romero film feels haunted by Pittsburgh, the smoky steel town where the dead first rose in 1968. But by the time Land of the Dead was made, Pittsburgh had changed, and Romero needed a different kind of urban decay. He found it in Toronto and Hamilton, Ontario. Canada offered not only perfect crumbling industrial backdrops, but also tax breaks that stretched his $15 to $19 million budget. Ironically, the move changed more than just scenery. Romero fell in love with Toronto and eventually became a Canadian citizen in 2009. He lived there for the rest of his life. So, while Land of the Dead looks like a story set in Pittsburgh, it secretly doubles as a love letter to the city that gave Romero his final chapter and his final home. Fact number 14. The premiere was at the same theater as Night of the Living Dead. When Land of the Dead premiered in Pittsburgh, it wasn't just another red carpet event, it was a resurrection. The screening took place at the Byham Theater, formerly known as the Fulton Theater, the very same place where Night of the Living Dead first shocked audiences in 1968. That premiere had been chaotic. People walked out horrified by its bleak ending. 37 years later, Romero returned to that same stage as a legend. The filmmaker, once dismissed as too extreme, was now being celebrated by the very audience that once recoiled from him. It was a full-circle moment, a victory lap drenched in nostalgia and respect. The man who gave horror its modern face had come home. Fact number 15. Romero met his future wife on set. Love in the apocalypse sounds impossible, but for George A. Romero, it became his reality. During production in Toronto, Romero met Suzanne Desrochers, a member of the film's production team. Their relationship grew from collaboration to companionship, and by 2011, they were married on Martha's Vineyard. Romero would later say that Land of the Dead not only revived his career, it gave him peace, happiness, and a partner who understood his strange world of monsters and metaphors. When he passed in 2017, Suzanne was by his side. The movie that began as a story about humanity's decay ended up giving its creator something far more enduring: love in a world of the dead. Fact number 16, John Leguizamo improvised many of Cholo's lines. John Leguizamo brought swagger, edge, and vulnerability to his role as Cholo, a hustler trying to climb his way into Fiddler's Green. But what made Cholo feel so authentic was how much of him came from the actor himself. Leguizamo improvised many of Cholo's most memorable lines, collaborating with Romero to shape his street-smart personality. He drew from his own experiences growing up in tough New York neighborhoods, adding realism and rhythm to the dialogue. Cholo wasn't just another survivor. He was Romero's critique of class warfare personified, a man who did everything right only to be rejected by the elite. That rejection drives his rebellion, turning him into both villain and victim. Through Leguizamo's performance, Land of the Dead found its heart, not in the humans' heroism, but in their humanity's flaws. Fact number 17. Romero introduced the first clown zombie. The image of a zombie clown has become a horror staple, but Romero was the first to do it. He introduced the concept in Day of the Dead and revisited it in Land of the Dead. The idea fascinated him. A creature that once symbolized laughter, now reduced to hunger and horror. The zombie clown works as more than a sight gag. It's pure symbolism, the death of innocence, the corruption of joy. It's childhood entertainment turned into nightmare fuel. For Romero, the clown zombie represented something deeply human, how easily we can turn joy into horror, and how the world keeps laughing even as it burns. Fact number 18. A video game was released the same day as the DVD. In 2005, Romero's Undead shambled into the world of gaming. Land of the Dead, Road to Fiddler's Green, launched the very same day as the film's unrated DVD. The first-person shooter let players step into the boots of a farmer named Jack, battling hordes of zombies to reach Fiddler's Green. Despite its promising concept, the game was rushed to meet the release date. Critics slammed its dated graphics and repetitive design, but fans found charm in its sheer campiness. It's now a cult collectible, a time capsule of mid-2000s horror gaming, and a reminder that Romero's influence reached every corner of pop culture, even the pixelated ones. Fact number 19. The film uses the 1930s Universal Studios logo. When Land of the Dead begins, it doesn't open with Universal's modern logo. It starts with the vintage black and white globe from the 1930s. That was no accident. Romero specifically requested the old logo as a tribute to the classic Universal monster films, Frankenstein, Dracula, The Wolfman, that inspired him as a child. It was his way of connecting horror's past to its present, paying respect to the legends who came before him while proving that monsters never really die. They just evolve. The old logo fading into his new nightmare made one thing clear. George A. Romero wasn't just continuing horror's legacy, he was its legacy. Fact number 20. Intelligent zombies divided the fanbase forever. Romero's boldest decision in Land of the Dead wasn't visual, it was philosophical. For the first time, he gave his zombies intelligence. Led by Big Daddy, a former gas station attendant, the undead learned to use tools, communicate, and even organize. For some fans, this evolution was genius, a natural progression of Romero's commentary on humanity. For others, it broke the very rules that made zombies terrifying. But that was the point. Romero wanted to challenge the audience's sympathies. The humans in Land of the Dead are greedy, divided, and cruel. The zombies, meanwhile, are rediscovering their instincts, even empathy.
I'm sorry.
By the film's end, you're not sure who deserves survival. Romero flipped the genre on its head, turning monsters into metaphors and forcing us to ask, in a world without humanity, who's really alive? And there you have it, 20 weird and disturbing facts about Land of the Dead. From Tom Savini's undead return to Simon Pegg's cameo and a studio's attempt to steal Romero's legacy, this film proves that even decades later, the master of zombies still had surprises buried in the dirt. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos on Day of the Dead's production disasters and the untold stories behind Dawn of the Dead. Tell us in the comments which Romero film still haunts you the most, and remember, in the Land of the Dead, the truth is always stranger than fiction.